Have you always been curious about IVF and the egg freezing process, but didn't know who to ask all of your million questions to? That was definitely me a little over 4 years ago, and now I'm finally pregnant. So I'm here today to share my story with you in hopes that it might inspire or encourage someone out there who just doesn't know where to start or just has a few questions.
It's gonna be a good day, great day with Myka Meier.
Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm wearing blue because this is my first baby boy and I'm so excited that he's almost here. I hope you all don't mind that I'm going to take a little bit of a layback as I do this session because I'm in the home stretch now and feeling every single movement and kick, and it's intense, but also makes you feel so connected too, which is really quite nice. So I thought the best way to go about this time together is really just treat it as informally as possible, almost as if we were sitting together on my sofa or yours, just chatting about my experience and really just sharing what I've gone through, because every single journey is going to be different, especially with IVF, especially with egg freezing. And what I know now, I wish I had the chance to ask somebody or have a friend to hear their experience 4.5 years ago. On that note, thank you so much to everybody who submitted questions. I put up a story a few weeks ago about what questions you had for me and what you wanted to hear my next YouTube talk on, and it was overwhelming that it was about this process and that I just have gone through in IVF and trying to conceive. So I thought this was a perfect time as I am here trying to prepare with the nursery downstairs. I have so much left to do. I feel so disorganized there. And really just mentally preparing to take just a little time today to be with you all and to share my story. I must first start out by saying I'm not a medical professional. I'm not giving advice to anyone. I'm just sharing my story, what worked for me, what didn't work for me, what I wish I knew way back when, and really just to try to give a little bit of encouragement if you need it. So I thought, just kind of going through, I've written down all your questions that you submitted on stories or, just over the last couple weeks. And just am going to crack through them and answer them honestly and with, no intention other than to help you if you are looking for a little bit more about this process. First question, how are you feeling and how far along are you? So I am now 37 weeks, which is end home stretch. I would say I'm feeling good. I would say that I'm cautiously optimistic mentally and emotionally because I'm guarded after you go through what I have, and I'm until that little boy is in my arms, I don't think I'll ever fully relax. It's a protective mechanism, right? Once you go through loss and real, years and years of trying, you don't want to get your heart crushed. So I'm hoping and praying. I pray really, really hard. I pray a lot. So I hope that, over the next couple weeks, I can welcome this little baby into our lives. And I am excited. I'm just a little scared that, something goes wrong last minute, but that's the truth. But I'm feeling otherwise all the mom things that I felt, even more so than with my first pregnancy, which is over 5 years ago now, with my little girl, Valentina. This pregnancy has been so different. I'm getting all the aches, all the pains, all the sciatica, all the heartburn, you name it. I have it. It also makes me feel like my body's doing its job. Whenever I feel really ill, I kind of think this is what your body's doing, and it's doing it for a reason. So it's almost a confirmation that things are working. If you could describe your process in a nutshell, how would you describe it? I went through 4 rounds of IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, is what that acronym stands for. multiple failed attempts of implantation, which means when they take that embryo and then they implant it inside of you, it just wouldn't take. So the embryo was perfect and was, the doctors said, oh, this is a perfect embryo, it's ready to go. And then for whatever reason, my body just rejected it or didn't accept the embryo, and it didn't survive inside of me. So that happened multiple times. So you really get your hopes up. I have to say, even if the doctors tell you you don't have as high a chance, your heart, you're so excited that every single time you hope and you pray and you wish. But that disappointment is, in my mind, was the hardest part of the whole process. Did you look into surrogacy or adoption? How do you feel about these options? I think they're wonderful options. And I was at the point where after the IVF session that I went through where I got pregnant, that to me mentally was my last one. And then I had just started the process in almost mental preparation that, okay, this probably isn't going to work because I'd been through so much and I kind of lost faith, that I started looking into and researching other options. So I that was my next step, was I just Googled, other options and learning about adoption and surrogacy. But that was I just felt that I had one more baby out there. I just felt it. I was like, I have one more little soul out there. And I don't know how I'm going to find him or her, but I will find them. And so I didn't know how I was going to, but yes, I love both of those options. I think they're beautiful options for different reasons. And that was definitely going to be my next step. Did you gain a lot of weight during the IVF process? The truth is not great here, but I don't want it to discourage you, because weight is something that can come and go and you gain and you lose. But yes, I did gain weight. I did gain a substantial amount of weight. I probably gained, for each IVF cycle, because of hormones and medicines that I was taking and water weight, I probably gained anywhere between 10 and 15 pounds. I think 15, or it was probably right before 15, like probably 14 pounds was the most I ever gained per cycle. But as soon as the cycle's over, then your body does normalize pretty fast. At least I found mine did, I should say. But I did gain weight. Did you always dress nicely during pregnancy? No, definitely not. There were days where I didn't do my hair, many days in a row where I didn't even see a makeup brush, for sure. No, definitely not. There were days where I just was in pajamas or cozy, comfortable clothes, and definitely not. But as soon as I left the house, I will stick to that though. I would never leave the house in my pajamas. I would never leave my house in a sweatshirt and a hoodie. So when I left the house, I was always presentable, and I would just take the options out and just choose things ahead of time that I knew would look nice, and I didn't have to put a lot of thought behind them, and they just were hanging in my closet. So in the days I didn't feel well, it was just whoop, put it on, walk out, and you're fine. Are you taking a maternity leave? Yes, I am. I think that is a very important thing to do if you can, to give your body the break, to give that time to bond with the baby. I think, for me, I own my own company and it's very hard for me to do. So I've been preparing the last couple of months with my team and just having everybody with their roles and making sure I'm as organized as possible with that, because yes, my out of office will be on, but of course I'll probably have a weekly meeting with everybody. Any emergencies or anything like that, I'll of course know about. But I'm looking forward to a maternity leave. It won't be a long one, sadly, but I love to work. So I think, you'll definitely see me very soon. What pregnancy symptoms did you struggle with most, and how did you cope? So I would say the first month with this little guy was actually great and easy. And oddly enough, my second trimester was so hard, and I was very ill. Couldn't get out of bed many days, couldn't keep anything up or down. I know that's not elegant, but that is the truth. I caught every virus, I caught every stomach bug. I think everything was down. It was from probably the stress my immune system was down, and I couldn't get back up on my feet. I had to go to the emergency room. I had to go, I mean, you name it, I went there. I think now this is a breeze. Acid reflux and back pains and not sleeping is easy compared to the second trimester. So, it was hard. How did I cope? I stayed in bed some days. I canceled appointments. I said no. I never like to cancel classes. But there were times where I was so ill, it wasn't, you don't want to do a bad job, and you don't want to give somebody half, what they deserve. So there were days where I just had to put my health and my body first. Will you have a tummy tuck after your pregnancy? No, I will not. I know that some women do that, but I am going to try to give my body a little bit of a break and then kind of go full on to just, getting healthy again by working out and eating really clean. And, once I am at that point where I'm mentally and physically ready, only then. I didn't push myself with my first pregnancy, and I didn't the second either, or I won't the second either. So that's the route I plan to take. Did you go through ICSI? And I did. So I had 4 different retrievals, but I did do that process, and that was just something that the clinic that I was at recommended, and so that's what we did. And how did you respond to the progesterone? I mean, there were days where I felt crazy. I really did. Progesterone is a very strong hormone, and I felt it. If you do feel a little bit crazy throughout any process, it is normal. It is normal, and it does go away. You do come back to normal, I promise. Is Valentina excited? Yes, Valentina is so excited that she has a calendar that she counts down. She asks almost every day when the baby's coming. She has been practicing changing her baby doll's poopy diapers and told me that, don't worry, mommy, when the baby comes, you can sleep, and I'll make sure I get up in the night and I take him so you can sleep. Just like, oh, so sweet. But she's very excited and begged and begged and begged for years, and literally prayed for a baby and a baby boy, funny enough. She prayed for a baby boy for probably about a year and a half. Almost every night she prayed. And so she's very excited. What are you going to do with the leftover embryos? So there are a lot of different options that your doctor can tell you about what you can do with embryos if you have some leftover that you're not using. For me, I'm keeping mine frozen. Next question is, what's the difference between egg freezing and IVF? So really, when you get your eggs taken out, then they're frozen, right? You might get 10 eggs, 2 eggs, 20 eggs. It just depends on your body, your age, your health, a lot of different things that your doctor can tell you about. But basically they go in and they take out your eggs, and then they put them on ice, and then that's when you're ready. If and ever you're ready, then you can unfreeze them, you can fertilize them with a sperm, and then they become embryos. With IVF, and because I didn't go through egg freezing, I just went through the embryo creation process. That was, they took the eggs on the same day, they put the sperm in, and then they created embryos. So the embryo is the really the process of creation in terms of what will be implanted into the body. So an embryo, is really already has its genetic makeup ready to go. And it's, you can freeze embryos, you can unfreeze them and implant them. The implant process, so the word implant or implantation is when they take an embryo, so a fertilized egg, and they implant it in your body. When you go through IVF and egg freezing, do you have to inject yourself with medicine via a needle? Does it hurt? And how many injections do you give yourself? Okay, so yes, if you're going through the egg freezing process or IVF, then typically, depending on your process in your body, at least for me, I did have to inject myself with needles. It depended on the doctor, the cycle, the time, the age I was in terms of my blood tests and the results that came back in terms of how many things I had to inject myself with. But, you get used to it. You mentioned previously that you had a miscarriage. How did you keep in high spirits? It's not easy. And I wasn't always in high spirits. There were days where it was awful. And I really relied on my friends and my family. I was very open with my close friends and family, and even put on Instagram, and social media. I wanted to be honest with what I was going through to maybe encourage or connect with other people. And so, just to be open about what I was going through if anybody else had the same struggles. So a lot of people, when they get pregnant, they don't tell anybody. And that's their choice. That's their personal choice. But for me, when I got pregnant, I told my closest friends and family, even though I knew there was a risk of miscarriage. But then for me, it was so that I had support. So when I did have the miscarriage, heaven forbid, but when it did happen to me, I had that village around me to lift me up and talk and let me be heard and comfort me. Because if you don't tell people, which again, it's a personal choice, then it's really hard then afterwards to tell people what happened. And then of course they'll be sympathetic and compassionate to what you're going through. But for me personally, I loved that process of having that support group throughout. But it was really sad, super, super sad. There's no other way to say it. When I had the miscarriage, that it was my body doing its job naturally to let this little soul go back up, and not have to suffer. So that's kind of how I think of it. And if you've ever seen the movie Soul, or if you haven't, I highly recommend it if you're going through this process. The entire time, I always thought Soul was a kid's movie, but then I watched it with my daughter, who didn't understand most of it. She got some of it, but I had the bigger takeaway of it, which was there are lots of souls up there, and when yours is ready for you, it will find you, and it will, when it's ready, but you can't force it. So when my little soul jumped down, like it was, for me, that was my relation. So if you've never seen Soul, watch it, and you'll know what I mean. Next question, is this your last baby? I'm going to go with yes on that one. I'm now getting to the age where I just want to be done with this process and enjoy life. So I think yes, the answer is yes. This would be my last pregnancy. Who was your doctor in the end, and would you recommend this doctor? So in the end, my doctor, who I call a miracle worker, I've told him that to his face, and he's very modest. He says, no, I was just doing my job. But was Dr. Eric Foreman over at Columbia in New York City. And his whole team, the whole process was just incredible. He's brilliant, and he tried something that no other doctor had tried. And I'd seen so many doctors and been to multiple IVF clinics in New York City. And then Columbia was amazing, and finding Dr. Foreman, who's just a genius, and he just tried, something that he really researched my case and went back and saw everything that I'd gone through and what we tried and what we didn't, and then tried something polar opposite. And it was really my last shot. I was done. I said to my husband, I'm not doing this again. What will be, in terms of this last shot is all we have, and I don't think I could go through it again a fifth time. So in that moment, he is my miracle worker, and I'm still in touch with him and emailing him. And so yes, I would highly recommend that team and over at Columbia. And I just think they're geniuses. Before you go through IVF, are there other options you can try? Absolutely. There's so many options. The most common, I would say, is IUI, and that is one option that you can ask your doctor about, and then ask your doctor. Just have a consultation, and often the consultations are free at these fertility clinics. and they tell you your options. They tell you what they would try first. And not always is it IVF, but there are a lot of options for sure. If you're having trouble getting pregnant, you just have to educate yourself, but start by that consultancy with that clinic or the fertility clinic or a doctor, just to find out where you are in your process and what options you have. Is there anything you are glad that you did? So I thought about this. I wrote this question down and I thought a lot about this because there were a lot of things I was glad that I did. And really, I'm glad that I got second and third opinions. So I was at one fertility clinic for about a year that wasn't working, trying everything and burning the candle at both ends, so frustrating. And then I went to another one the next year, and then another one. And I think getting second opinions, if you've been at the same fertility clinic and it's not working, then don't think that's your only option. And not giving up was also something I'm really glad that I never did, because I wanted to many times. And also something big is genetic testing of the embryos. So once you have the embryos, there's an option to have them genetically tested to see if the reason why maybe they aren't implanting correctly, or that they won't be successful in terms of a live birth, is because maybe genetically the sperm and the egg, there was something not right and the quality of that embryo wasn't high enough to survive. So if you do the genetic testing ahead of time, that actually weeds out a lot of potential issues you could have with implantation. And, for us, if we had 5 embryos and we sent them off for genetics, usually 2 would come back and say, this is not a viable embryo. This embryo is not going to survive the implantation process. And implantation processes can be expensive. They are taxing on your body. They're stressful. So you don't want to implant an embryo that is not, if you already know is not going to make it. So I would say always ask, if you can and you have the resources, about genetic testing of your embryos before you implant. So that's definitely something that not everybody does, that I would highly recommend. What in the end worked for you? One thing that, with Dr. Foreman, that he tried on me after going through so many different medicines, he tried a natural cycle with me and it worked, which was the polar opposite of what all these other clinics had done. And it was my last chance. And I thought, okay, were we really going to gamble a natural cycle on the one last embryo, opportunity that I'm going to be giving this process? And he was confident and he just said, I think it's going to work. And he was so confident. And I said, okay, fine, let's do it. And it worked. One thing I wish I would have known about IVF clinics, generally speaking, is that on the day of implantation, they'll, many clinics will assign you a day and say, we're going to implant the egg on Tuesday, the 13th of the month. And that's when they do all their implantation on that week. Now, Dr. Foreman, what he did at Columbia was he actually every single day, I had my blood work every morning, 7 a.m. every morning, test. And then he actually implanted the embryo on the day that my cycle was showing the levels were right. So instead of adjusting my body to the Tuesday surgery schedule of that clinic, he said, we do implants every day of the week. We more are concerned about your body and not our surgery schedule. And it was like this aha moment of, oh my goodness, some of the experiences at clinics I was going to were giving my body so many drugs to make me either hold on long enough to the day that they wanted to implant, or delaying my body, making my body speed up so that I would fit into the surgery schedule. And clearly that wasn't working. That is a question I wish I would have asked when I was interviewing fertility clinics is, do you implant on your surgery schedule, or is it based on my body schedule? So that's a really important thing that I wish I would have known. Did you freeze your eggs? And if so, at what age? So I did not freeze my eggs before I went through this process. I wish I had, though. And if I could go back and tell my younger self, what to do, I would have frozen my eggs in my 20s or, early 30s, I think. Next question. How do you stay elegant and poised with heartburn and all of those symptoms that pregnant women experience? I mean, I wouldn't say I was always very elegant during those times, elegant and poised. I would say, I was like any other normal pregnant woman. I stayed in bed. I took naps at 1 p.m. if that's what my body needed. When I was out and about, it was when I was feeling decent. So maybe I looked elegant and poised, but to feel it as much is the truth. I think, you do your best. And sometimes I think pregnancy is almost like a get out of jail free card. People understand. So if you don't have the motivation to put yourself together or to, really feel elegant or look elegant or poised one day, it's okay. It is the time where you just focus on you and whatever you need to do to survive some of those days, to be honest. On that note, I hope you found this helpful. This is something that is, I wish I could be sitting here with all of you in person. And if you are going through a fertility, point in your life where it's not working out the way you wanted, you're not sure what to do next, don't give up hope. There's so many different support groups online and in person that you can access. I think, it seems when you're in the dark parts of it, it's really isolating and really lonely, but don't give up. Hopefully I can show you that, not giving up eventually can lead to a successful pregnancy. And had I given up that last time, this little guy would not be here. There are lots of options out there. If you've gone through IVF and it didn't work, then again, look at the other options and just know I'm thinking about you, I'm cheering you on. And I wish I could give you a big hug because I know I needed it at one point if, that's where you are in your journey. But I'm sending you all so much love and hugs and positive vibes and all of the sticky vibes and baby vibes I could possibly throw through this video. And I really, truly hope that you all found this helpful. And next time I might be here with a little friend to introduce you to. Thank you so much for joining. If you like this video or think it'd be helpful to somebody going through a similar process, don't forget to forward it to them, like and subscribe. And thank you so much for joining me today.